Hey guys, welcome to part 3.5. Now I just shot part 3 and I put it together and I realized that I left some things out that I wanted to get out there before we moved on to part 4. So here's a little supplement video for you. And for those of you watching who have watched this Broke DJ series, these have been some of the toughest videos I've ever done. I'm making notes for a day sometimes to think about the kind of things I want to talk about in each video. And I'm still making mistakes, and sometimes I post notes on the tripod and I screw them up, and they're not perfect, guys. But I'm here, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to provoke some thought perhaps, and get some of your feedback as well, so keep it coming. This video in particularly, I am not doing any notes, I'm just going with it. This is kind of the old style of doing things. We're going to see if this works better. But anyway, here's some stuff that I didn't cover in part 3 that I wanted to get out there. I always ask my clients, regardless as to who they are, and where I got the client from, whether it was an agency gig or I booked it myself, how many people are going to be in attendance, and generally, who are these people? Why? Well, here, check it out. Let's say that I've got 2 gigs on a weekend. I've got a Friday gig and a Saturday gig. Let's say that my Friday night gig is a retirement party. There are going to be 60 people in attendance. They primarily want to hear 50s and 60s music, and speaking of 50s and 60s, that's the age group. They're in their 50s and their 60s. Now then, on Saturday, I've got a wedding. They're recent college grads. Most of the people at this wedding are going to be between the ages of 20 and 30. A lot of their college buddies, a lot of their work associates, things like that. I'm going to bring a very different PA system and a very different lighting system to each of these gigs. If I brought a full-on giant PA and light show to the party with 60 people, I'm going to be obnoxiously big in the room. I might not even fit in the space allocated to me. I'm going to be overbearingly loud. Now, for those of you who are familiar with 50s and 60s music, you typically don't get a lot of sub-frequency bass. So you're probably fine with a nice, clean set of top cabs and a couple lights. Nothing fancy. You don't need a big trussing system for this. Probably a light tree. But if you're going to be doing a party for 600 young people who are going to want to hear hip-hop and a lot of modern music, you're going to need some subwoofers. In fact, you may need multiple subs. You may need to add some top cabs on the top. Now, the reason for this is not because you're going to be playing to 600 people on the dance floor. You might. Maybe not, though. Your focus is the dance floor. Maybe you can get 150 people on a dance floor at a time. So, does your PA really need to be much louder than it is for 60 people? Yeah. The reason being is because people, much like furniture, absorb sound. It's kind of like if you have a room with no carpet and no sofa in it, it echoes. But as soon as you put carpet and a sofa in that room, the echo goes away because the cloth or the mass of the sofa and the materials that the sofa and the carpet are made of will absorb sound. So yeah, you will need a bigger PA for that. So that's a good question. How many people are going to be in attendance? And just to get a general idea, who are these people? Now, any one question you ask can spawn several new questions that you never even thought of asking. So you can't really script this. You can give yourself some rough notes, but oftentimes you're going to need to ad-lib a little bit. If you ask your client about where their guests are from, and they tell you Trinidad, and you don't know much about what's going on in Trinidad, you're going to need to ask about the music of Trinidad. And I found this out at a consult that I did one time. Turns out that it's soca and calypso, and it worked very well. But I wouldn't have known about salsa and calypso being a Trinidad thing unless I would have asked. I didn't know where Trinidad was on a map until this gig, and I'm ashamed to say that. I should know where places are. But I'm an American, and we're guilty of that a lot. But if you take all of this stuff and you wrap it up together, the credibility, the objective, everything, and you use it, what you should be able to establish is something that not only works for you, the DJ, but ultimately works well for the client and the guests and the overall success of the event itself. If your client starts talking about, oh yeah, you know, we're going to have 160 guests here, we really want to hear primarily music from the Grateful Dead. One of two things are happening here. Either you're going to have 160 deadheads at your party, and what are the odds of that when it's a wedding and you've got grandma and uncle and nieces and nephews and all kinds of people there? Slim to none. or they really don't know how things work. And remember, folks, you are the professional. You do this every week. You should know how this works, and you know damn well that Grateful Dead all night with a mixed crowd isn't going to work. Yeah, let's play truckin'. Let's get a couple Grateful Dead tunes in here and there, because that's your personality and that's what you want. Let's do the entrance, the bridal entrance, the grand entrance to a Grateful Dead track. Let's definitely do a Dead theme, but we can't do Dead all night. And if you've established your credibility properly, you'll be able to then consult properly, and they'll listen to you. And all you have to do, if they don't want to listen to you, is remind them of their objective. Remember what we talked about earlier, when your objective was to get everybody out on the dance floor? Well, playing a whole evening of Grateful Dead, I'm afraid, is counterproductive when we're working with this objective. We're going to have to try a few different things here that maybe aren't exactly what you envisioned in your head, but quite frankly, what you envisioned in your head would only happen in fantasy land. We're not miracle workers. We have to have something to work with, and an evening of Grateful Dead with a mixed crowd ain't going to work. But we can still get their personality in there. And again, if we establish our credibility properly, they'll listen to us. Stay tuned for part 5. Oh no, screw that. Part 4. Practice and enjoy. Just a quick note to some of you young DJs and upstarts out there who felt like maybe I was picking on you guys in this video series. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I apologize if that's the message I conveyed to you. But that was not my intention. I never said you guys were no longer valid. You're definitely valid. In this economy, if you can hang, if you can DJ, if you kind of know what you're doing, you can definitely go in and take some of these lower end gigs. The problem you're going to have with the higher end gigs, which is what this video is all about, making more money in a bad economy, you're going to run into a couple snags. Number one, it's going to be your experience. Even if you're 14 and you've DJ'd your entire life, you still don't have the experience that many of the DJs here on YouTube have, or many of the pros out there have who are doing the high-end work. You're not there yet. You've got a lot to learn. Most of the DJs out there who are doing really well have worked for DJ A for a while. They watched DJ A. They paid attention. They learned how DJ A did things. Then they worked for DJ B, and they watched him for a while. And then they worked for DJ C, and they watched her for a while. And then they took all of these things from A, B, and C and made it their own, and developed their own DJ persona, and they got their own act together. You guys haven't had time to do that yet. Not at 14, not at 15. You've had time to see how maybe 1 or 2 people do it, but you've got some stuff to learn. The other problem you're going to have is the credibility angle. It doesn't mean that you're not trustworthy. It doesn't mean that you're not a professional young person. It just means that, quite frankly, you're young. And young people typically are not going to have the credibility that an adult's going to have who has some experience. In the meantime, guys, know there's work out there for you, especially in this economy. You're going to get loads of schools as long as you can handle the kids. Sometimes the schools want an adult in there because they need a person with credibility to control the crowd. Sometimes they feel like they're good kids. Sure, we can put a kid in this situation and we'll be just fine. There are going to be picnics. There's going to be all kinds of gigs you guys can take, but you're not going to be able to compete in this market right now. Not in the wedding market. Not with the supply and demand. So in the meantime, guys, hang tight, and if I can ever help any of you, let me know. If any of you are local and want to go on a gig with me, have Mom and Dad contact me. Maybe we can work something out.